if you look at the time the entire time, it's going to go by slower in your mind. And so when you distract from that time and do other things, then that time doesn't seem as long.
Hey there, welcome to Charting Toward Intimacy, where we're expanding the natural family planning conversation. I'm your host, Ellen Holloway. Before we get started with this week's episode, I just wanted to mention that this episode was actually recorded about 6 months ago. So if some of the things that we're talking about seem a little out of date, that is why. All right, let's get started. All right, we are here with Jen and Logan Lorette. I am so excited to have you guys here. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Today, this is one of the episodes in our seasons series, and we'll jump into, what episode that is in a little bit. But before we get started, Jen and Logan, can you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves and your ministry that you do?
So we've been married for almost 13 years. We have 4 boys here on earth and then another boy in heaven. And we run Surprised by Marriage. It's a little online ministry we started a few years ago. Just because we've been surprised by all the trials in marriage, but at the same time, we've also been surprised by the graces that God gives us through the sacrament when, we're striving to put him first. So we're just surprised by marriage in so many ways.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And if you guys aren't following Jen and Logan on Instagram, they are super fun to follow. They have funny videos and sometimes lip sync to each other and all sorts of fun things.
Yeah, he puts some up to that.
So this episode is, like I said at the beginning, this is part of our Seasons of NFP Use series. And this particular episode is, we're going to be talking about when you're in the season of trying to avoid, and just kind of like when you're in general in that season. So trying to avoid can look very different. It can be like in a lot of different seasons. But we're going to be just talking a lot about abstinence specifically. But yeah, just kind of when you're trying to avoid and the difficulties specifically around that. So to get us started, what was your guys' experience charting during seasons when you've had to try to avoid?
So we're currently in one of those seasons, and
good old postpartum.
So I feel like we should answer this question with like a little asterisk next to it, because whenever Jen gets pregnant and has gotten pregnant with one of our boys, it's considered high risk. So in that, like, we go the entire pregnancy without actually being able to have sex.
We have to abstain during pregnancy, and so now, our baby's, how old is he? 5 months old. And charting postpartum is tricky. Most people know. So it's frustrating because it's like never ending abstinence sometimes. It feels like, at least. So yeah, that's the asterisk for us. Yeah. So we're currently trying to avoid, because we're also recovering from Hurricane Ida, and it's just been stressful and we're tired. So charting has been really hard because I just don't have the bandwidth for it. But at the same time, like, I need to chart. So it's just sanctifying in so many ways.
Oh, yes. What a good word.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Logan, do you have anything to add to just kind of that experience of trying to avoid?
I'm sorry.
So we have our baby, and he's making noise. Sometimes,
if you hear baby noise from the background, it's just there's an adorable baby filling up a diaper. No big deal.
No big deal.
I would just have to add that during that season, it's tough and grateful at the same time. Grateful because it allows us to connect differently in ways that's not physical, but tough in the sense of just finding a rhythm of that connection that quite bluntly sex would give you in the bedroom. And so just that season, because of the way her charting works, and it's all over the place, it's not anywhere remotely common, and so it just makes it a little more difficult than I would say normal.
Right. So I have PCOS. So normally with our first 3, just the first year, there was like nothing. So we didn't really have to worry about postpartum charting, but it's been different this time around. I don't know if the extra stress or whatever. So it's been challenging this time around. Like we literally just went 3 weeks with like no usable days, which is frustrating. So we're having to communicate a lot more right now.
Oh yes, that C word.
Communicate. Oh yes.
Oh man. Wow. Well, I mean, yeah, sanctifying to say the least.
Yes.
So, I mean, you've kind of touched a little bit on this, but what would you say are some of the most difficult aspects of charting when you're trying to avoid and using NFP, not just charting?
Well, so
staying on top of it is what you always say.
Yes,
just being able to constantly keep doing it.
Well, because I technically do Creighton, but I'm not doing a paper chart right now. So, I mean, I guess I'm not technically doing Creighton, but I'm like making observations, like Creighton observations. And I'm just like put it in my phone, but I have to remember to put it in my phone. And then I get like sidetracked. Like I skip a day and then I'm like trying to go back and remember my observations, which is stupid because I'm not sleeping.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And then I'm getting mixed up and then I'm like, wait, did I like record that right? And it's just, yeah. So maybe you should remind me. I should, yeah. No, I'm not calling you. I'm not throwing you under the bus. It just came to me. I'm like, maybe I should like have him remind me. I'm not remembering, clearly.
No, I usually just, I'll look at her and be like, is today a good day? And she'll be like, no. So I'll do it tomorrow. Is today a good day? No.
Just
every
for all
time
you
I
guys
ask, it's never right.
Here, I feel like this adds to what he just said. He had finger guns every time he said that. I just think everyone listening should picture this. He's got finger guns saying, is today a good day? Today a good day?
Yeah.
And just, a tiny bit of me dies every time the answer is nope or this and that. But no, I'm just joking. It's just, yeah, there's a lack of, I don't know how to describe that. It's just communicate. That's, I'm glad we're doing that.
C word again, communicate.
Yeah.
No, but I think you guys are actually, not to like throw you under the bus, Logan, but you really are touching on something that is so important during a season when you're trying to avoid, especially when you're stuck in like long periods of abstinence, is that this is a season that can get really mentally difficult for the woman who is charting, because it feels like all the time you're putting down this information and it's kind of discouraging. And sometimes you end up feeling like the gatekeeper. And so this is a really great season for you husbands out there, or ladies, ask your spouse to really step into a more active role in charting and really trying to help in nice ways, reminding your wife to
not
chart.
In the middle of a podcast recording.
Yeah, probably not in the middle of a podcast recording. But
wait, I forgot. Wait, is today a good day?
No, oh my gosh.
Yeah, don't ask.
Yes, that's a no. That's gonna be a no.
I'm not talking about it right now. Oh gosh.
But yeah. So not asking that way, but but really taking a little bit maybe larger of a role than you have typically, husbands. I'm kind of speaking to the husband here. And lovingly asking, like, can I help you write down those observations, or reminding them at the end of the day, hey, did you get those observations written down? Because like Jen was saying, like, especially when it's longer periods of abstinence, or you've got something else going on in your life, like maybe trying to rebuild your house and have a baby at the same time. Not to like single anybody out.
I don't know who you're talking about.
No idea. It's just so mentally draining. And so, yeah, I just think that's a really important point that you guys kind of touched on there. What would you say are kind of some, well, I guess I kind of said some tips, but what would be some other tips or suggestions for couples who are navigating this season of natural family planning, a season of trying to avoid?
So we will say this all the time. And it's kind of like a universal, I mean, everyone should do it, but pray together. Like between all that. Yes. And I saw you react just now when I said it, like it's obvious, but a lot of us don't do that, unfortunately, but we have found an unending amount of graces as a result of it, especially during these long times that we've had to do it. So definitely pray together, and, it allows you to realize and focus on other things.
Yeah, I mean, praying together is a form of intimacy too. So that's why we say to pray together, but also the other areas of intimacy, like emotionally sharing, like my frustrations, preferably not in the middle of a podcast recording. But yeah, just focusing on those other areas of intimacy, because we realize this is our second really serious time of trying to avoid a pregnancy. And it's been completely different than the other one. But I mean, it's the same thing, is you have to focus on the other areas in your marriage, and not just the sex, because the sex is not happening as often as you want. It's just given us an opportunity to work on other things.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm putting myself in the shoes of myself a couple of years ago, when I had like never prayed with my spouse before. What would you tell the person who's listening, who's like, I can't pray with my spouse, I've never done that before? Like, how do I even start?
Logan has a great response to this.
I do.
Oh, okay. Maybe we're not thinking of the same thing. No, I mean, he just likes to remind it, because people are like, oh, that's like too intimate or like too awkward or whatever. And Logan's like, you get naked in front of each other. Like, that's not, like, you can pray together and you're like naked in front of each other.
I could have.
You have sex.
He didn't like that. I could have. I was going to answer that in different ways, but I was not expecting you to throw naked out there of all of
I thought that's how
we talk about everything on this podcast. Don't worry about it.
But it is true. I mean, if you get naked, so, but now we're just really throwing it out there. We actually just did a whole series about this, right? About praying together.
What?
Didn't we do a whole praying together?
You know, at our church?
Yeah.
Oh, like a year ago. Oh, yes. Yes.
It was still recent.
It's been a long year.
Right.
No, yeah, we hosted this couple prayer series at our church, and that's what he liked to remind everybody.
And look, one thing's for sure, it's never too late to start praying together, because we've seen a lot of couples that are either have been married over 30 plus years, and those who have been married 6 months. And it's never too early, it's never too late. The hardest thing is just to do it. You just got to do it. I mean, and when you get married, you're making a promise to have God in that unity of your marriage, and there's no better way to do it than to pray together. And he's going to give you that strength to get through all obstacles, especially long periods of abstinence when you're having to chart or you're having to do NFP and all the above. So that's another top. That's you can go deep down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, maybe I'll just have to have you guys back and we can do an episode about couple prayer.
There you go.
Yes.
We could take up like another 45 minutes talking about that. But I think something I want to add too is remembering that there are lots of different ways to pray. If you're just starting out and it feels kind of uncomfortable to just sort of like openly pray and like just sort of talk like that, like say a Hail Mary together, say an Our Father, like do a decade of the Rosary to start.
There's no particular way you have to pray together, and I think that's what the common misconception when it comes to that. Why
there's no perfect prayer.
Right. You're just talking to God, but together at the same time, and it's like, what was that analogy? Oh, if your kid comes up and draws you a picture of a flower, and that flower
looks nothing
like a flower. It might look like a bird. You're still going to appreciate the effort and love that picture because it was your child that did that for you. And God feels the same way about prayer. He doesn't care how you pray. I mean, to probably a certain extent, but he doesn't care what the prayer is. So praying together, there's this big stigma of like, oh, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it. But no one really knows how to do it. You just got to say what's on your heart. And so,
yeah. Oh, that's such great points. Thank you. Yeah, that's great. Any other kind of suggestions for couples who are in this season of trying to avoid?
Yes. We are big fans of date night.
Yes. So glad you mentioned this.
Right. Yeah. When you can't have fun, like in the bedroom, you can have fun out of the bedroom. And we've done so different things regarding date night, like themed date nights, or we do a Goodwill date where we pick out each other's clothes and then we change into them and then go eat dinner or lunch somewhere. And it's fun. And you're connecting in all these other ways when you can't connect, in the way you want to at the time.
Yeah. On our website, we put out a few years ago a date night guide, right? For married couples, because it really is, if you think about it, when you're dating and you're trying to fall in love with the other person, you're doing all these things. You're going to the movies, you're going to eat, you're doing fun things, you're going to play putt-putt, all the above. And then when you get married, you kind of like settle. And so it's like, no need to do any of these things anymore, because there's things that distract us, kids distract us, jobs distract us, and we start to separate from that fun and that excitement that builds on the marriage. And often in a lot of marriages, that's what kind of leads to the bad things, because we seek that elsewhere when it's right here sitting next to us. And so that's why we advocate for date nights a lot.
And especially trying new things together, especially if you might be in a rut because you're going through this period of abstinence.
Well, yeah. And we learn a lot about each other that we thought we knew, but we didn't know. And so it's a unique
like he
way.
is very good at picking out my clothes. We learned that from our Goodwill dates.
Yes, I am.
I see, Logan, you didn't respond in the same way. Like, did you not really like how Jen picked out your clothes?
She doesn't care to do it. Right. That's the thing. Like, I don't mind. I'll let her do it. She's like, nah. For me, it's fun because like when she lets me, it's like I get to dress my wife in the way I want to see her dressed, and she happens to like it that way. So,
and I don't have to make that decision of what to wear.
Oh my gosh. I would love it if somebody just picked out my outfit every day. I might have to talk to my husband about this.
No, that we've done the challenge where it was like a week and I did that, and I was drained after that week because I was getting a headache just looking at
there are a lot of
thousands of yeah. So
yeah, I think it's pretty typical for the woman to have like 3 times as much clothes as the man.
And I don't even have that many clothes too. So.
But piggybacking off of that whole date night stuff and what we're talking about right now is just having fun together. Like that's all that is doing. You're taking your focus on just being physical with each other and allowing yourself to be, fun again. And it's not just about one specific topic, and it doesn't seem as stressful as often because you're finding that communication in a different way, whether it be those things that we just talked about. And
I think that's such great advice of just like, doing things together that aren't in the bedroom. And just like, on the one hand, it's building great, communication in other ways. It's building great, oh, excuse me. It's really building your relationship together, in the way that you did when you were dating, which, that's how you guys fell in love in the first place. So it just makes sense to continue to do that. But then also just on like kind of a more practical level, it's distracting.
Yes. Now it's funny that you say that word because that's the word that I was thinking about and I literally was going to say that word when you stopped talking about it's a good distraction. It really is.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be distracted from that because our brains like it. So
yeah, exactly. And there's nothing wrong with you just desiring your spouse like that. But if you've discerned that you really do have a serious reason to avoid at this time, you're, whatever that reason is, that's also okay. It is okay to need to avoid. And so then it is okay to distract yourself. with other very good things, right? Like we're not saying, oh, go distract yourself with like something worse.
Right.
Dating your spouse is very good.
Actually, I just realized that our other period of trying to avoid, we actually started Surprised by Marriage during that time. So there's like fruit that comes from abstinence, I feel like, because our marriage did grow like significantly during that time because we had to like learn to love each other in other ways.
Well, yeah. And it's, when you're trying to make the time go by faster, if you look at the time the entire time, it's going to go by slower in your mind. And so when you distract from that time and do other things, then that time doesn't seem as long. And yes, it's kind of like it's a perception thing, but at the same time, hey, I'm doing something with that person that I'm also waiting on. So it's a win-win when you look at it that way.
Yeah, definitely. That is such a good point. Yeah, because if you're sitting there like just looking at your bed going,
right.
All I can do is sleep in this right now. Mm-hmm. It's just going to make it so much worse. Oh, I love it. Any other tips or suggestions or anything else that you guys wanted to add about this season?
Yeah, I think it's important to find people who are not only like in the current season that you are in, like just for solidarity, but also I find it's helpful to have friends who are like kind of like on the opposite spectrum. Like I have friends who are like just really trying to get pregnant right now. And so it just gives you like that perspective when we're like, oh, this sucks, we can never have sex, like, oh. But like on the flip side, I mean, everybody has their cross. It's not, I don't know, to see other people in different struggles kind of gives you a fresh perspective. Like, yes, this sucks, but like, there's always going to be something.
Well, to piggyback on what she's saying right now, that's part of the reasons why we started this ministry in the first place, is to talk about things that people don't hear that often. And I'm glad that other channels like yourself are diving down that road to bring it up, because a lot of times we fight with the inner battles, and until we find out that someone else might go through similar things or is willing to talk about it, like we don't know how to approach it. And so like finding that other support, and even whether or not it's the same or different, is it's going to come in handy.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, that is fabulous. Fabulous what you guys are saying. Thank you guys so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your experience and your ideas. I think this was so great, and I hope lots of people will find comfort and solace in the similar.
Oh gosh,
I thought of something. On our website, surprisedbymarriage.com, we do have a lot of resources, like I just mentioned about the date night guide for married couples. But we've also worked together over the past couple of years, putting together these calendars that you can do with your spouse as well. Like we have a Lenten calendar coming up, like to have something unique to do on each day of the 40 days of Lent. We have something for the Advent season as well. And it's just important to have extra resources like that you can do with your spouse to distract, as we said earlier, but also to grow during that time that you're having to abstain.
I didn't think about that as a good thing to do when you're during like in a season of trying to avoid, like, because it's just one simple thing to connect with each other each day. And even there's we have a version kind of just for women. It's 40 days on loving your husband. So that would be something for the ladies to look into.
Fabulous. Oh my gosh. Well, I will put those links in the show notes to take a look at those, because that sounds like the perfect distraction, but a holy distraction, like a very good distraction.
That was the whole point. Yeah.
I love that. A holy distraction.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming on the podcast. This was so great. Thank you for sharing your story and your experience. I think a lot of people will find comfort in solidarity.
It was fun. Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for listening. If you are not already following us on Instagram, be sure to check us out at Charting Toward Intimacy. And if you have comments, questions, or episode topic ideas, please feel free to reach out to me via email or on Instagram. Links to those are in the show notes. Until next time.